Oh yes, it's coming in 3, 2, 1. On the air with FDT-TV, the premier West Ham and Arsenal football podcast, brought to you every Monday by Michael Hawes and Ian Varker. Hello and welcome to episode 38. Hopefully that intro had some sound because it stopped playing halfway through for me, but hey ho, stranger things have happened. First off, I must say a big thank you to Mike for keeping the ship afloat last week with a solo podcast, monocast if you will. It was all a bit up in the air for me this end, but back to normal. How you doing, Mike?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Must say I'm very happy with the weekend's result. Still the Arsenal march on, mate. I know we've had a bit of a blip recently, but I think, do you know what? It's frustrating. I'm gonna rant for 2 seconds and then we'll get back into it. But I don't understand how we can put performances against Chelsea. I must say, at that particular point, an informed Chelsea, an average Man United, and some would, in fact, no, not really an informed West Ham, in the grand scheme of things. But when you look at the likes of Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Brighton, and Brentford, fuck knows, how are we going to have results like that and then go out and look good against three fairly top 6 teams? It's really frustrating. Really frustrating. Well, but still, we are still in full. So I'm happy.
I think there's a few things you have to take into account. Those lesser teams, as you will, as most of us see them, won't lay down. Now, Manchester United are horrendous. Chelsea lost to Everton, so they've fallen off a cliff. And West Ham were only big in Europe, so I think that answers the question.
Massive in Europe.
Well, I don't know. After that first leg, we've rescinded to big. If we get to the final, we'll be massive again. But until we lose to Rangers or whoever it is, yes. But also, what you have to take into account with the weekend's good result is, I think the underlying thing there was, let's stop Tottenham getting fourth. Now West Ham are unlikely to get it. So let's give it to Arsenal. Let's give them the 3 points in a competitive fashion.
And if that is the case, mate, then fair play to West Ham, because no one likes Tottenham.
No, and I think
I've got to admit, actually, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think Mike Dean has stopped supporting them as well.
Yeah,
without some of those decisions, but
sour grapes, mate.
But yeah, so I think maybe what we should do is front load the podcast with previous predictions and predictions for next week, and then delve in a little bit deeper to some of last weekend's results.
Yeah, no worries. So obviously you won around last week for unforeseen circumstances, so we didn't actually get a prediction.
Oh yeah.
Personally, I think it was just a bit of a ploy, because you're winning at the moment.
I would have gone for 2-1. I would have gone 2-1 Arsenal, if I'm honest. I just felt it in my bones. No.
So is that 3 points to you then? Or?
No.
No. So the games that we're just going to recap on is games from a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, as I mentioned, Chelsea versus Arsenal, Arsenal Man U, and then Chelsea versus West Ham. Mm-hmm. So Chelsea versus Arsenal, I think that run of form that we were currently on, we both predicted a 3-0 win for Chelsea, and it was quite the opposite. As I mentioned in the podcast last week, it was the battle of the two terrible defences, and unfortunately for us, Chelsea had the worst defence, so it was 4-2 to Arsenal in the end, so no points there. Arsenal Man United, you predicted 1-1 and I predicted 3-1 to Arsenal. Again, I was in a bit of a shit mood at that time, because we just come off the back of 3 ridiculous defeats. The score was 3-1, but unfortunately for me in the predictions, it means neither of us get any points, but fortunately for us means we've got our place back in the top 4. And then finally, Chelsea versus West Ham was the final game. You predicted a 2-1 to Chelsea. I predicted 3-1 to Chelsea. And to be honest, it was, I'd say, by the narrowest of margins. Again, briefly touched on it last week. But yeah, Chelsea ended up winning 1-0. So we both get a point for that. So it's 1 point each. Doesn't really do much for the standings. Ian, you are currently on 53 points and I'm on 42.
And we haven't got many weeks left of the season now, have we?
Nope. Nope. So I'm still trying to think of other games that we could put in to potentially boost my score. But I think, to be honest, the trophy's yours this season. I'm gutted to say it, but it's not mathematically
impossible
yet. So we'll keep. Yeah, we'll keep going.
It's not over till it's over.
A couple of games. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, so okay, so with that being said, obviously we did miss out last week, but we do have some games this week to bring you. So first off, on Sunday is Arsenal versus Leeds.
That's Saturday, isn't it?
It might be. It might be. Don't quote me. I'm not a scheduler. It's either Saturday or Sunday. It's one of the two.
Oh no, it is Sunday. It is Sunday. Right.
There you go.
So we're both playing on the same day.
Yeah.
At 2:00. Leeds travel to the mighty Emirates Stadium to take on Arsenal. An inform Arsenal, 3 wins in the last 3 games. Leeds have found a bit of form recently. On the grand scheme of things, I would say.
Yeah. They're not as open as they were. Are they?
No. Since the departure of Bielsa, but. So let's have a look. 1, 2, 3 wins, 2 draws and a loss in their last 6 games in all competitions. So again, it's not a terrible form, but I think with the way that Arsenal have been playing, this is going to be one of these ones where we think we're going to be comfortable going into that particular game, and we end up getting spanked over it. So where do I sit in terms of my prediction? So just very quickly, honourable mentions for the last couple of games. I mentioned his name in last week's podcast. Mohamed El Neni, another standout performance for him. He's come back into the team. He's been absolutely fantastic, and it's so good to see him play some attacking football. I mean, there was an opportunity. I think he put Nketiah through, lovely ball. Nketiah hit it straight at Fabianski. So yeah, I think he's definitely, with his experience, he's definitely what we've been missing without Thomas Partey. Which is great because it's nice to see that we have got that backup. And personally, I would give him another contract. I've got to be honest, just on the last few performances. We have had Tomiyasu back in the team as well.
Yeah.
So he got a bit of a run out, but he did come off injured fairly late on to the game. But I would say that was down due to match fitness. Anyway, I don't know if there's anything that we need to be worried about, obviously, with him going down potentially with another calf injury, but we'll wait and see what happens a bit later on in the week. In terms of my prediction, at home, 2 Leeds. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Arsenal on this one.
Ooh. Now, the way I look at it, I think you've hit now on the head with everything Arsenal there. You've got El Neni, who is a good squad player and does the basics very, very well. Simple football, as I like to call it. But Leeds are in need of a win. They got battered by Brighton. I think they got battered the week before that, didn't they, as well? And it was one of those, they've shut up shop better, but we're still seeing sort of elements of that Bielsa ball, which leaves them open for the taking. So I think... Is it Bruno Lage, or whatever his name is in charge of them now? I think he will have them a bit better drilled. So for that reason, I'm going to go for a 1-1. I think they might nick an early goal and try and shut up shop early, and then you'll get one. You'll get something. So that's my prediction for that. And then is it the same time they kick off?
No, yours. Yes, it is. I'm just going to stop talking.
So 2 o'clock.
We're wrong so many times already.
2 o'clock Sunday. Two games that either will be really good or really bad. Norwich host West Ham. Now Norwich are all but officially relegated at this point, I think. There have been moments where they look good, and I think this one depends on West Ham's midweek foray in Europe. So we're in the semi-final again. Eintracht Frankfurt, we're 2-1 down. Obviously, we've got to travel to Germany. If we win that, I think we'll ride the wave and beat Norwich. If we lose that, I think there could be a huge hangover, and that will be the end of our season, and we'll just lose everything else. But I'm going to be positive. We're going to go away and win in Europe, and we're going to come back, and with a change side, we're going to beat Norwich 2-0.
Okay. I think you need to be a little bit more confident, mate.
I just think we've looked tired every time we've had a European game. The game after, we look tired.
Yeah.
So
yeah, true. And as you said, you're travelling away for this one, aren't you? So there will be the hangover. But obviously, we did see a bit of a change squad against us. But even then, I think you were still battling. Granted, you didn't really have many shots or whatever, and it was only when Antonio come on. Sorry, just very quickly, David Moyes did make me laugh in the post-match conference when he said that he didn't. His substitutions were made to try and make the game, and he said it. They said, I think they were worse when the subs were made. That did make me laugh. But anyway, there was obviously one eye on Europe this week. No doubt about it. So I do think you've got every chance of still qualifying. It's only what I say. It's two goals, and you're back in the final, mate. So be positive. I've got every faith, which probably means you're going to get knocked out of Europe and you can get spanked by Norwich. But I've gone for 3-1 for West Ham on this one.
Fair, I'll take that. In fairness, if we look at it from the perspective of did any West Ham fan anticipate us getting to a semi-final and still being in it? No. I think to go out to Eintracht Frankfurt would be horrendous. If Barcelona had got through and we'd gone out to Barcelona, you can go, okay, sort of, they're not what they once was, but we've gone out to Barcelona, like one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Yep.
You can't say the same for Eintracht Frankfurt, really, can you? And it would sort of be poetic justice for them to win in some respects because we still haven't paid them for Sebastian Haller. So, not that he was worth any money, but apparently he's linked with Manchester United, so that'd be fun.
Oh, God.
He'll probably come back and score 40 goals. But, so...
Against West Ham.
Yeah, I think if we can... We'll say there's no away goals, is there? So even if we go 1-0 and take it to penalties, do you know what I mean? We did rest a lot of players against Arsenal. I think that was apparent. Obviously, Jared Bowen is another level. I know everyone talks about Declan Rice and it's sort of got the shirt up there, but Jared Bowen, we need to keep hold of him just as much as we need to keep hold of Rice. Antonio can do a job, but I think he would be better served as a sort of a super sub. Tired legs, get him to come on and bully people and be really effective for 15, 20 minutes. And we've got Mark Noble's last game in, 2 weeks? So, or last home game, I should say. But even so, he put a couple of big tackles in, didn't he? Which was good to see. So shall we talk about Everton beating Chelsea quickly?
Yes.
Because Everton are sort of a bit hapless at the minute. And then Jordan Pickford's found the form from the Euros and kept Everton in the game, and they've won 1-0. What is going on? The bottom of that table is looking really excited at the minute, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like it's definitely going to come down to the last game of the season.
Yeah,
I think as to who's going to go down or not, and it's crazy. It's one of those games again. I suppose. I'm dreading them coming to us actually at the end of the season, 'cause that's our last game of the season.
Well, they're always
And
a bit
that
of a
could
bogey
be-
team for you anyway, aren't they?
Exactly. And if they've got to play for survival, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that's going to be a horrible, horrible game to
Yeah.
to finish the season off. But I suppose our only kind of saving grace would be if Liverpool spank Spurs at the weekend, which I don't think they will. That'll be one of those Man City results, won't it? Where they don't have to. Sorry, where Spurs will actually turn up, and that will give them a bit of form going into the North London derby next week as well, which again is very worrying.
Yeah.
But if we win our game against Leeds and Liverpool beat Spurs, that will give us a 5-point gap. Now, even going into the North London derby, possibly see that one as a draw, which again is a favourable result for us. But then we've got the likes of Newcastle and Everton in our remaining fixtures, and they're two games that I've got to be honest, I'm worried about.
Newcastle actually, it seemed like they've turned the corner a little bit. They're playing quite well, aren't they? And yeah,
Yep.
Everton. I don't know. I think when you look at old Lampard's record, it's not great, but it's the same as Steven Gerrard's, and everyone's praising him. But they're actually only, well, if Everton win their game in hand against everyone else, that puts them on 35 points. So they're only 7, 5, or 8 behind if Aston Villa win the next one as well. So they're not too dissimilar. But yeah, it's definitely a 3-horse race down at the bottom. Burnley, Leeds and Everton.
Yep.
I couldn't call it. Who's going to go down? I think it's just going to come down to who picks up a lucky result. And I think at the free squad, you have to say Everton have got the better squad.
Yep.
I think Burnley are tough to beat, but they haven't got the Sean Dyche sort of factor now. But they've picked up a couple of results on that new manager bounce. Leeds, for that reason, I think Leeds are probably the favourites to go down. But again, they've got some world-class players, and Bamford could come back at the right time, and all of a sudden they've got their goal scorer back, and they're back in the running again. It's hard to call. It's really hard to call.
Here's a question for you then.
Go on.
Frank Lampard,
Yes.
if he pulls off the survival,
Yes.
is that a great escape or a poor season for Everton?
I think a little bit of both. So they started really well again, and Rafa seemed to do well, and then all of a sudden it started to get negative and negative and negative, and Goodison Park is one of those grounds. If you're 15 minutes in and the home team's not playing well, the crowd starts supporting the away team, and they let you know you're playing rubbish. And that sort of has caused some rot in the squad. They were missing some big players for a lot of the season. For Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, Pickford lost all form, it seems. And they got themselves into a position where they were relegation favourites, I think, for a little while, out the 3 that left. And there's been glimpses in the last 4 weeks. I know they've been beaten a lot of the time, but there's been moments of brilliance, and I think their losses have come down to individual mistakes, and they're all hitting at once. But that comes, I'm sure, as you could attest to, with confidence. You're winning games; those mistakes don't happen, and when they do, they're few and far between. When you're down in the dumps, like the beginning of the season for you, you lost the first 2, and all of a sudden you was making mistakes like there was no tomorrow. All of a sudden you turn the corner, and now you're 4th. It's yeah. So I think if they do get out of it, I think you could count it as a great escape. Yes. In short.
Yeah, that's fine.
If he gets relegated, do they sack him? That's the other question.
I think it would be harsh if they did, because I think the damage had already been done by the time Rafa left Everton, it was a difficult job, I think, to build that team back up. And obviously, as you've just very rightly said, results come through confidence. And if you've made some recruitments and stuff is still going not your way, then you've got an even bigger job in trying to build the confidence of the team back up.
Yeah.
So I think I wouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, I think it would be very harsh.
Yeah. Well, I think he's getting a tune out of the younger players, isn't he? Like Anthony Gordon and people like that. And that's what he did at Derby. That's what he did at Chelsea. And I think that's probably what Everton want, because if you was to give him 10 years, 5 years, what are you going to look like if he brings through those young players and they're all playing to the level that he wants? You look at, who did he bring him through? Tomori, okay, he's left, but he's playing really well in Italy. Same with Tammy. Mason Mount is the first name on the team sheet. They're all players that he brought through. Reece James is another one who's now one of the first people on the team sheet. And then if you can produce that at Everton as well, who have got a decent academy, I think, over the years, they produce some good players, then they'll be laughing. But it's just keeping them competitive at the same time. Yeah. It's a results business. It's results.
Absolutely.
And they might come eventually, but they might not. But on to the big game of the weekend.
Grudge match.
East London took on North London, and Mike Dean got it wrong. So I think well, he did and he didn't, and we had a bit of a chat beforehand. I think there were contentious decisions for both teams, and we'll get into them in a little bit. But I think we controlled the first 10 minutes of that game, and that was about it. We had a few minutes here and there, but other than that, I don't think we really challenged you that much.
I don't think you challenged, but I'd say you certainly had more of the ball, because that was shown in the possession stats. But I think where the difference was the fact that we were more threatening and more clinical.
Yeah, we had a lot of sideways and backwards passes.
Arsenal football from not only this season, but from previous seasons gone by. And again, you could possibly do that or put that down to the fact that you had a rotated squad.
Yep.
You want to try and keep the possession as much as possible and try and catch us on a counter-attack, because obviously everyone knows Arsenal's liable for a defensive error every now and again.
Yep.
As shown in recent weeks, and I think as shown for the goal that was conceded as well, from a West Ham perspective. It's something that we have seen improvements of, but again, I think with the loss of Tierney and seeing Tavares come in, he likes to try and get forward. Tomiyasu, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, coming back from injury, didn't have the match sharpness. I'll say it, Cedric. He's been really consistent, which is something that we see a lot of in his Southampton days. But has had a bit of a hit and miss time with us. But certainly in the last few weeks, I think he's been brilliant. But obviously with Tomiyasu coming back, he's quite rightly our number one.
Yes, I think you had to give him some minutes to get legs under him for Tottenham.
Absolutely, 100%. We did also see Ben White out with an injury as well, with Rob Holding coming in. And I thought their partnership, him and Gabriel, was pretty solid. And he was given our man of the match. Obviously scored the first goal, which will come on in 2 seconds.
Well, I think I've always liked Rob Holding, though. He's not... he's a no-frills defender. Yep. And you know what you're going to get. He's not a world beater. He's not the worst. He's fairly consistent. And, again, does sort of basic football good.
No, I completely agree. And I think Wenger summed it up when he signed for us, and he almost apologetic for Rob Holding not being the key marquee signing, but he knew at that particular point he was going to be a good defender.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it's very difficult because for Rob Holding, he's had quite a few standout games where he's been called upon and has been absolutely brilliant. But then there have been other games where he's been a bit of a liability, gets caught out of position sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'd say on the most part, when he's needed, he's been brilliant.
Yeah.
For us.
He's a brilliant squad player, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, I feel kind of sorry for him that he hasn't had more of an opportunity.
Yeah.
When you look at some of the centre backs that we've had in the previous.
Yeah, well, you think if he'd had the game time that some of your centre backs were given, how much of a better player would he be?
Your David Luiz's and
yeah. But, so, shall we get on to contentious decision number 1?
Go for it.
So, contentious decision number 1 happened in the first half. It's about 12 minutes in. Cresswell came flying out the West Ham box, clattered a player on the edge of the penalty area. My initial thought is, oh, bloody hell, here we go again, penalty. We got a free kick for that. I've got no idea what the free kick was given for, but in no way, shape or form should we have been given a free kick. And I believe, and I will argue, that Arsenal should have had a penalty in that moment. I think that was a wrong decision. And as a West Ham fan to say that, I think that's a bit odd. But do you recall that incident and what do you make of it?
I vaguely remember that decision because I think there was a couple of challenges that happened prior to that.
Yes.
And everything seemed to get blown up for everything. Mm-hmm. And that one, I think it was Martin Ødegaard was being put through at that particular point. But I do remember it vaguely. And to be honest, I don't think I was too outraged at the fact that the decision had been given because of some of the decisions that were given prior to that.
Okay.
As you mentioned, we did see some.
There were some challenges.
Other contentious, yeah. So I don't remember being outraged. Well, I do remember the decision. I think it was one of those ones. It was like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, but they didn't focus on it. It was moved on very quickly, and VAR didn't even check it, which I thought was strange because it was one of those sort of Xhaka nutty boy challenges where he just comes flying out of nowhere, and you think, oh, what are you doing? But contentious decision number 2, I think, or big talking point, with Saka knocking on the ball with his hand to then putting a cross for Rob Holding to put his new hairline on the ball. So we've seen those stricken off for handball. This one wasn't. And you got a goal. Would it have made a difference? Possibly. I mean, it would have been a point. But I think if you'd got the way I viewed that one is you should have had a penalty to let that one go. And sort of there's an equal balance to it. Okay, we didn't concede a penalty, but we did concede a goal. Sort of
there's a 50-50 chance whether it's a goal or not.
Exactly.
So I do get what you're saying, and I do remember them talking at that particular point whether it was going to be checked with VAR. Mm-hmm. And I think, like us in a couple of weeks, where I mentioned this in the last podcast, where Arsenal have gone the whole season with contentious decisions going against us.
Yes.
Not only this season, but I think for a good few previous seasons where there appeared to be some sort of agenda, quote marks. But for this particular decision, I remember them talking about it going to VAR and saying, are they checking for possible handball? Now, I know they checked, but it was one of these ones that was very quickly moved along. VAR check was completed. And I think the reason why they come back with this is that there was nothing clear and obvious about the goal being overturned.
Okay.
They couldn't identify, or they couldn't clearly see any potential handballs or anything like that. Now, I also agree with you that there could have been contact by the hand. The only thing that frustrated me about this, I suppose, from looking at it from a West Ham's perspective, is a couple of weeks ago when Arsenal scored against. It was an equaliser against someone. I can't remember for the life of me. It might have been Crystal Palace or it might have been Brighton or someone. I think it was Brighton. And they checked and checked and checked. And there was a good 4.5, 5 minutes of them checking.
Yep.
Trying to find the slightest bit that they could rule it offside for. Again, going back to this whole agenda against Arsenal thing.
Yep.
Now, as far as I can remember, there's been no incident or no other incident within the Premier League this year that has taken that long to decide whether it's a goal or not.
Yep.
Now, if they're going to do it for one of those decisions, for a slight offside, I think it was Martinelli that was offside at that particular point.
Yep.
Why the hell they don't apply the same level of consistency? I'm kind of answering my own question as I'm saying it every week, and it does frustrate me. And I think in fact, I'll save this point for the next topic that you're going to speak about, because I know what you're going to speak about. But it kind of ties into what I'm just about to say. So if we move on to the next bit, and then I'll say the bit I was going to say.
Well, so I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I would be quite happy if they put in a check for everything that took 5 minutes. If every check took 5 minutes, because at least you know they're looking at every possible avenue for it. The fact they don't then makes it worse. But yeah, so third and final contentious point for me really was Aaron Ramsdale. Now, I like a good keeper challenge, you know that, and I commend him for coming out of his box, just being the last man to try and win the ball. He mistimed it. I don't think it, and this is sort of part of what you're probably going to touch on. I don't think it was malicious, but it was mistimed, and it was it did put Bowen in potential danger, which is some of the wording they've used before. But he made some contact with him, and I think every West Ham fan in the world was like, yes, Ramsdale's being sent off, we're back in this game, control, thank you very much. And all of a sudden Mike Dean produces a yellow card. And I think West Ham fans were a bit like, well, okay, we'll take the yellow for the goalkeeper. We'll play on that. We've got a free kick in a decent position. We'll go on the attack. And it turns out it was Jared Bowen who he'd booked. Roars of boos from the crowd. Roars of boos from the pub. And yeah, so he booked Jared Bowen for simulation, essentially.
Yep. And
watching it full speed, I think Ramsdale should have had a red. Watching it slowed down, I think Ramsdale should have had a red. I understand that Mike Deans said he thinks he simulated it. He didn't go and look at the screen, which I think is interesting. I think he should have been instructed to. So, yes, Jared Bowen did move over and sort of anticipate the challenge. But when you're running full sprint, someone else is running at you full sprint off the ground, you know you're going to get clattered. You're going to wince, aren't you? You're going to move. You're going to try and avoid it. So, initially, I thought, bad refereeing. And that's the point where I thought they should have had a penalty. So, let's give it back to them as to, I'll correct that decision by not sending their goalkeeper off. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I've got another reason for it. But I'll let you have your say first.
Okay, so my view on the decision. So when that actually happened, you very quickly, heart in mouth, think of Bernd Leno and Granit Xhaka style challenge, or Bernd Leno running out and handballing it 50 yards up the pitch. I've got to be honest, I thought it was off.
Yep.
I thought there was a tackle and he should have been sent off. Now, when they showed the replay, you do see obviously Jared Bowen from one angle moving out the way.
Yep.
But I could have sworn at that particular point I did see a clip on Jared Bowen, and I thought he's definitely gone.
Yeah. Only very slight on his back heel, back leg, but it was contact.
Contact nevertheless.
Yeah.
The fact that they looked at the decision and completely waved it off, I think is again potentially a joke, because had that contact been seen, depending on which angle you look at it, It could have been a David Luiz running through and sent it off for not trying to play the ball. There was two key moments in that. One, the fact that Aaron Ramsdale had left the floor completely, wasn't in control of himself, and the studs were showing as well, I think, at that particular point. So had he made contact on that, as we said before, that's a potential leg breaker had Jarrod Bryant not anticipated that.
Yep.
Now, the bit I was going to say is we're coming back to the whole VAR thing. Now, everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's entitled to it.
Yes.
An opinion. In the post-match conference, you had Alan Smith, JB Redknapp, Jermaine Defoe, Graham Souness, and I could never remember for the life of me what this guy's name is, the presenter from Sky Sports.
Yep. 4
of them, at that particular point, said, no foul for me, he's dived. Even Jarrod Bryant gets up and admits there was no contact, yada, yada, yada. Graham Souness said, no, like we've just mentioned, with him leaving the ground, studs are showing, blah, 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 blah. Now, I think regardless of whether next season we're going into this semi-permanent or permanent VAR official, this whole decision about whether it's a right or wrong decision is still open to debate, because you're going to have people that think, no, I don't agree with your decision, and you're going to have other people that say, I do completely agree with your decision.
Yep.
For some of the good, because I will say some of the good that VAR has done to the game.
Yep.
I still don't think that you can have these decisions made by one impartial person. There needs to be a group of people and possibly a unanimous decision. But then again, are you slowing the game down even further? Quite possibly. But I think from a good part of this is that you are going to be having that 1 or 2 people that are making those decisions. Therefore, they're consistently going to be giving that same opinion. But again, that could fall down to, depending on what day they fall on. If they've not got any loving from their missus or whatever, wake up in a bad mood, they can think, do you know what, fuck it. I'm going to tell the referee they've made a decision, or they made the correct decision, red card stands, and it quite clearly is not a sending off. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I'm speaking tongue-in-cheek there. But you get my point, is that it's very difficult to look at these decisions and say it's not the correct decision or is the correct decision, because everyone's got a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
Or everyone has their own opinion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I've got to admit, like I said, I completely agree with you. I think had Mike Dean been sent over to the monitor and seen the fact that Aaron Ramsdale had left the floor, the studs were showing at a particular point within that move, that is a potential red card.
Yep. So
that was a really long one.
No, but I think it hit some really good points there. I do think that having an official there will be good. I think what they need to do is come out with reasonable justification. At the moment, it's sort of the corporate line, isn't it? They come out with. They never got it wrong. Yep. It's never a problem. This, that, and the other. So originally, I thought you should have had a penalty. That's sort of that. Oh, I got one wrong for them. I'll get one wrong for the other team. But then I thought about it, and I thought about it a bit more, and I thought, if it was another team, would I have wanted it to be red? And I think the answer was still yes. And then I thought back to a conversation we had a few weeks ago about corruption in football. And West Ham have been on the hiding of VAR, so's Arsenal. And I thought about it, and I thought, who's more marketable at the minute, West Ham or Arsenal? Well, Arsenal's the answer, realistically. Big club, been out of Europe, great comeback this season, pushing for a 4th spot with Tottenham, which is all but the next game. What's going to make that more competitive? If they're both on equal points, if they're like that, so it's now a big game to be pushed, because actually it's a 6-pointer. And I thought actually that builds it to a bigger picture. What's going to make it a a better game, a more marketable game. If Aaron Ramsdale's still on the pitch, probably. Because one, he's loved by fans, he's hated by opposition fans, he's a marketable character, and actually it all comes down to the Premier League making money. And then I thought maybe it is match fixed, or VAR fixed, as I like to call it, because they didn't send him over to the monitor. Why didn't they send him over to the monitor? There's no justification for not sending him over to the monitor, even just to say, go and have a look. You might not change your mind, but go and have a look. And for that reason, I was a bit frustrated. And I thought, how would you get round that? The only way to get round that is for us to be able to hear referees and for us to be able to hear their communication with the VAR room. They're not going to do that. And I think the only reason they won't do that is because there is some form of corruption going on. Whether it's big club bias, whether it's match or match fixed, there's something going on. Otherwise, why wouldn't they go, we're going to be open and transparent. We're gonna tell you what referees say, and when players swear, we're going to book them. And then we're going to send them off. Because you'd get rid of that pretty quick, and it'd be easy to manage. But then everyone would, whether you agree, disagree, or sit on the fence with the decision, will understand why it's been made. And at that point, you can't argue with it. At the moment, no one knows why the decision's been made. No one knows why he hasn't gone and looked at the monitor. No one knows why VAR hasn't overruled it. And for that reason, it could be corrupt. There's not a definitive, but that is a very viable option.
And do you know what? That's a bloody good point, actually, because as you mentioned, I didn't even think of it in that kind of context. And for people that regularly listen to this podcast, firstly, there's two things. One, Ian loves a conspiracy. Two, Ian, I think you've made a point in quite a few episodes about potential match fixing.
Yeah.
Match fixing. And that is a very good point, actually. I didn't even think of that.
It's
and if that is the case, it's worrying.
Don't get me wrong, the North London derby is always an interesting game, but it's also a big money maker for the Premier League. Now, when we look at every other football league in the world, and I did do a little bit of reading on it, every other league in the last 20 years has had some form of match fixing. The La Liga, the German one, Serie A, they've all caught match fixing. Championship, League 1, League 2, all of them. What's the only league that's never had any form of match fixing found? Premier League. Somehow,
the biggest.
The most marketable league in the world. Somehow, right, I don't believe that. If it's in all the other big leagues and they do go, this has happened, we've sorted it. Well, sort of, because the referee's still refereeing, but he got a ban and a fine. But it's happened in all those leagues. So they're getting VAR sort of right most of the time. We're getting VAR wrong, but we've got no form of match fixing whatsoever, but we can't get VAR right. How does that work? Explain that to me. If you can stop match fixing and cheating, which happens in every sport in the world somewhere, it has happened. It's never happened in the Premier League.
That's a good point.
And that's because they're so blatant about it, because we're the biggest marketable league, we can do what we like. How do we make it more marketable?
We do what we want.
But that's what it is. That's what it is. And I know people say, big club bias, big club bias. Actually, the big clubs do bring in lots of money for the Premier League. Why wouldn't they be biased towards it? They're going to make us more money this year. Make them more marketable. Which is why I think, as Manchester United are just falling through the floor, they're getting all these really odd decisions to go for them. Why? Because they want them to succeed, because they've got global appeal. Doesn't matter if they're finished 19th. They're still one of the biggest clubs in the world. They're a worldwide brand. Watford aren't. Brighton aren't. It's West Ham are on the line. Everyone's heard of West Ham, but we're not as marketable because we're a rough East End club. How many flat caps can you fit on a train? Do you know what I mean? But I do think I think it's rife, and I think if you was to dig down deep enough, you'd find it. The president of FIFA got done for corruption and match fixing, but it's never happened in the Premier League.
It's because we have tighter regulations, mate.
Oh, shut up! Shut up! But yeah, so but other than that, other than the corruption and that, I think it was an interesting game. I don't think either team particularly shone their best light on themselves. No, for one thing, I think tactically, why you didn't just keep attacking down the left-hand side. We had Aaron Cresswell playing centre-half and Ryan Fredericks, who's a bad right-back, playing at left-back. Just put Saka over the top. Fredericks is fast. Get Saka on the ball, let him run at him. Dice him up. And then why Ben Rama didn't get given the ball to run at Tomiyasu, who's not completely match fit, I don't understand. Basic tactics. Surely everyone goes, bread and butter. He's playing out of position. Focus on him.
I think there was a couple of challenges that Ryan Fredericks put in on Saka pretty early, which I think possibly, obviously I don't want to speculate, but that might have been one of those little bit of a nasty challenges, like you get past me once, you see what happens. That sort of mentality, do you know what I mean?
And I think he had to do that.
Yeah,
I do think he had to do that. Let him know you're there early doors. I think
is the term.
But say if I see a couple of times you put it over the top or put it through and made him have a foot race. Ryan Fredericks is going to win that every single time. If you put Saka on the ball with his skill, with his agility, okay, he's going to take a couple of clumps, but Fredericks is either going to end up getting sent off or get diced up.
Yeah.
We didn't have anyone else to replace him. It's not like, what are you going to do? Take Declan Rice out the midfield? But
it's an option.
Put him in defence.
That's it. Option for Thursday, mate.
Well, it might have to be. Here's the thing, right? Mark Noble was playing, and I love Mark Noble, but he's not in the prime of his career. Yet, I think he was almost one of the most competent midfielders on the pitch. It's just, I know you get a little bit with experience, but some of the challenges he were putting in still were good, and simple passes. Okay, they were backwards and sideways, but simple passes. He's not the creative wizard of the team, is he?
Not at the moment, but he can definitely grow into it, I think.
maybe when he graduates from the under-21s. Oh no, the under-41s. Sorry. But yeah, so
that's it. What's the oh fucking hell! I can't remember the name of the. There's a specific name for the older generation of football. You'll see him on that Masters five-a-side tour. They'll be absolutely ripping it up.
In fairness, right, I can see him being the manager of West Ham one day. I think he will go into coaching. He's already in some capacity involved with the academy somewhere, I believe. And I think he will go into coaching younger people. But you think in 10 years' time, once he's done that, he's West Ham through and through. He does know his football. He knows what West Ham's about. Even if it's sort of a little throwaway as to we have another really dogged season and get rid of the manager. Bring him in for half a season. Lift the spirits, do you know what I mean? But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it'd be good.
We'll see.
But yeah, so
we will see.
Have you got anything else to say about that game, Mike?
No, about that game, no.
Have you got anything else? Well, I thought Chris Kamara had died the other day.
Yes.
So Sky
The
put
amount of outpouring.
up a thing about like he's not with us after 25 years. He's gone, and someone else put, oh, how sad, this, that, the other, posted it, and I see a few things, and I'm like, okay, Chris Kamara's died. He hadn't died. He's just left Sky. I know he's got an issue with his speech at the minute, but I was like, I only met him like last year. That's fucking mad. But he's not dead. So long may he live. Hopefully we get to see him on our screen soon, because we all love a cammy moment. And yeah, actually, just quite a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
singing voice as well.
Yes, not bad. He was on The Masked Singer, wasn't he? Was that the one he went on?
No idea.
I think he went on that. Might not have done. I might be speaking out my arsehole again. But yeah, so have you got any other footballing news for us this week, Mike?
I can't remember if we've already touched on this or not. Just very quickly, congratulations to Fulham, promoted back to the Premier League, back to the Promised Land yesterday, after a 7-0 thrashing to Luton Town. I know my friend Adam will very much take pleasure in the fact that I've called out Luton, his beloved Luton, being absolutely spanked. Just looking currently at the Bournemouth Forest score, it is currently 0-0 still, with about 20 minutes left to go.
Which means it's still all to play for next week.
Absolutely. So Bournemouth need a win in order to guarantee promotion. But if Forest manage a last-minute winner or an equaliser, as you quite rightly said, it does go down to the end of the season. But guaranteed player position if not. And you got to say well done to Forest for the season they've had, turning their absolutely dire run of form at the start of the season to where they are now is absolutely.
Well, I'm sure people will be jumping in the river, because that always happens, doesn't it? But yeah, so other than that, not long to go for the season. And it's only a very short break before it starts again because of the World Cup.
Thank God for that.
See, here's the thing. Like, I don't know why we don't play in the heat of our summer, just to try and get some used to it before going. I know it's not the same as playing in the desert, but like playing on a sunny Saturday afternoon, getting
we've surely played in hotter as well, like in South Africa and Brazil and stuff like that.
Yeah, but just I don't know. We'll see. Get into some England talk as well next or in the winter. I can't believe it's already May.
I know.
What's going on? We're halfway through the year already, almost.
It's
crazy
madness,
stuff.
Isn't it? Just time just does not stop at the moment.
Nope.
Like I said to you before we started, all I want to do sometimes, especially today, is just sit in a room in silence, do nothing, and just stare at the wall.
Yeah.
That is what I'd love at the moment. Not that I'm not enjoying your company, obviously.
No.
It's just
So
everything else just going on.
Going off of football, I had that conversation with my missus the other day. I said, do you ever just like doing nothing? She's like, what do you mean? I said, just sit on the settee and just like stare at the ceiling. She's like, and do what? I was like, nothing. She went, what do you think about? I went, nothing. She went, but you can't think about nothing. I was like, yes, you can. You just do nothing. And it's lovely. And she didn't understand how I could do it. And then she said, you do that before you go to sleep, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. And she went, do you know how I know? I was like, no. She went, because you go to me, oh, I'm going to go to bed now, and literally 2 minutes asleep. I was like, that's because I just turned my brain off. I do nothing.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think the older I get, the more I relate to Mickey Flanagan when he's talking about swishing the bath, boiling the kettle, standing there watching it boil and stuff like that. I more and more relate to that every day as I get older.
But working from home, you don't get the full benefit of standing watching the kettle boil.
No.
Because it's not the same, is it? When you have to make 15 cups of tea, you have to boil it twice. And, well, that's not my dime. It's
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah. So, okay.
You have to get one of those quick cup things for when you're home.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I'm not wasting my time. Well, Well, on that note, before I incriminate myself even more, I didn't used to make tea at work anyway. Yeah. Just used to boil a kettle. Yeah, until then, I've been Ian. Make sure you go and make sure you go to the old YouTube channel and subscribe. It does help us out. And until then, enjoy your week. We'll see you next Monday. Ta-ta.
Cheers, guys.
Where's my mouse? I can't stop the recording.